by your request, because a lot of you have asked me how I figure out what colors to match with what colors. So here we are. And for the purpose of this video, we're going to use this tool, which is called the color wheel. So the first concept that maybe I should say I want to remind all of you of, because I feel like we have all learned a little bit of color theory in elementary school probably, is that there are three colors, red, yellow, and blue, that are called primary colors. A primary color is a color that you cannot create by mixing other colors. And what this means in terms of eyeshadows is that theoretically you can't create red eyeshadow unless you have red pigment. You can't make yellow eyeshadow unless you have yellow pigment, and same for blue. And there are three colors, orange, purple, and green, that are called secondary colors. Primary colors are colors that you cannot obtain from mix and matching other colors, but secondary colors are colors that can be obtained by mixing and matching primary colors. So the only way you can have a yellow color is if you have yellow pigment. Similarly for red, similarly for blue. But you can obtain orange, which is a secondary color, by mixing yellow and red. You can obtain purple by mixing blue and red, and you can obtain green by mixing blue and yellow, which essentially means secondary colors can be obtained by mixing primary colors. And if you look at the color wheel, you see that the primary colors on this color wheel look like they're the same distance from each other. Some people argue that that's actually incorrect. I'm not going to get into the detail of that. We're going to assume this is a correct shape. So on the traditional color wheel, the primary colors are the same distance, and right between each two primary color, you find the secondary color that you can obtain by mixing those primary colors. And then you can apply the same concept in perpetuity and get newer and newer colors. So only having the three primary colors, theoretically, you should be able to create the whole color wheel. This should guide how you're blending colors. If you're using red and blue together in an eye look where the two colors intersect, you're gonna get purple. This should be expected. If you're using blue and yellow together at their intersection, you should get green. In fact, you can use this to your advantage, because if you don't have green, but you have yellow and blue, you can use that. Or you might sometimes have a different shade of green and you want to use another shade of green with it, so you can maybe use yellow and blue for that. The proportion of the colors that you use can possibly give you a different effect in the color that you're creating. So for example, if you're creating green and you're not using a 50-50 proportion, meaning half blue, half yellow to create the green, and you use more blue, the resulting green color is going to lean a little blue. A lot of you might have heard me say in videos that this green color has more blue in it than it has yellow. Over time, if you train your eye, you can see this if you've worked with colors long enough. So the three secondary colors that we talked about, orange, purple, and green, the interesting thing about them is that of these three secondary colors, orange is the only color that is composed of two warm colors. Both yellow and red are warm-natured colors, whereas purple is comprised of blue, which is a cool tone color, and red, which is a warm tone color. Green is comprised of blue, which is a cool tone color, and yellow, which is a warm tone color. And where those proportions that I talked about comes into play is that if you're creating, for example, green, but you're using more blue to create that green instead of yellow, that resulting green is going to be more cool toned. Similarly with purple, if you use more blue to create a purple than you use red to create a purple, the resulting purple is going to be more cool toned. Of course, vice versa, if you use more red, the resulting purple is going to be more warm toned. And this is very important because in a lot of videos I have mentioned this purple is warm toned and now we're going to use it with this other color that's also warm toned. And I've had people ask me, how do you know this purple is warm toned? Again, I have mix and matched colors long enough to be able to just visually see it. But the only way you will get there is just practicing with eyeshadows and with mixing colors. You might already realize that there are some colors missing from the color wheel because the color wheel does not depict the colors you would get by mixing colors that are not next to each other. Because as I said, it's a spectrum. It's just going to show you what you would get by mixing colors near each other and not a mixture of multiple colors or colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. And that is the third point here, which is that the colors that stand across from each other on the color wheel are called complementary colors. And if you mix them, you are going to get variations of brown, which are not colors that exist on the color wheel. The colors that stand exactly opposite the three main primary colors are the secondary colors that are obtained from mixing the two other primary colors. So for example, green, which is a mixture of blue and yellow, is a complement to red. Purple, which is a mix of red and blue, is a complement of yellow. And orange, which is a mix of red and yellow, is a complement of blue. Another way of thinking about complementary colors is actually not by mixing two colors, but by mixing three colors, which include essentially mixing all three primary colors. So if we're saying that if we mix purple with its complement, which is yellow, we're going to get brown. Well, purple is just a mixture of red and blue. So if we mix red, blue, and yellow, which are the three primary colors, we're going to get brown. And however you look at this with the two other primary and secondary colors, you're going to get the same results. Now, why this is important when you're making an eyeshadow look using complementary colors is, well, if you mix complementary colors, you're going to get brown. I'm sure you've heard people online say, oh, these eyeshadows muddied. That's essentially what's happening. Chances are they mixed two complementary colors, and at the intersection of those two colors, they got a variation of brown. Now, there are various ways you can get around this using different techniques. I'm going to make another video talking about cool color schemes to use for eyeshadow looks, because complementary colors are actually extremely fun to use when making eyeshadow looks, because using two complementary colors together make the complements pop. So we know that orange is a complement of blue, and you can see how that orange rectangle is the same shade on both sides of this image. But next to the blue, it pops so much more. Now, all that we talked about is concepts from fine arts. However, there is this very giant elephant in the room, which is that in fine arts, you usually do art on a blank white canvas, whereas in makeup, you do the art on your skin, which has its own shade and an undertone. So in theory, if you put a color on a white canvas, that exact color should show up. But if you put that color on your skin with your undertone, it might show a completely different color. And the only way you can get around that and figure out how a color will look up on your skin is to just play around with it. Play around with the makeup that you have available to you, mix and match different colors on your skin to figure out what they will look like, what you like, what looks good to you, what doesn't look good, and see the result of the blending on your skin. I have another video where I talk about simple eyeshadow looks where I also recommend a palette. I'm gonna tag it here. If you're curious and you're a beginner, I recommend that you check out that video also. Okay, beauties, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any particular question or any topic you want me to go deeper into, write it in the comments below. I love you all. Have an amazing day. And until next time, bye.